Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight podcast. Today I have with me a guy who I've known for a number of years and who I've seen progress through endurance and also in recent years through business. I figured the topic of pressure is something that he would be able to share a lot of useful insights with, and to be honest, I kind of was right. Ben Kinerman-Daltrey is an incredible human being who's done something pretty special over the last 3 years, but really, in retrospect of the show, over the last 10 years, and I think into the future, he continues to do super special things. He has some incredible views around pressure. He has some great examples around pressure, and it's really my hope that through listening to the show, you or those around you may be able to cope with pressure a little bit better. This week's podcast announcements brought to you from Chamonix, where the mountains are beautiful and the Wi-Fi is absolutely terrible. Therefore, I am not recording this on the trails, but I have a nice background in the background for you. No, it's not a green screen. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome. And if you're just listening, there's not much to see anyway, so wait for the next video that I do on this. The announcements for this week, obviously, Eid Mubarak to everyone who is celebrating. Thank you to everyone who's made it into the gym over the last few days. There's been some awesome classes and some great vibes in the cafe. So if you have been in town and you have swung by the gym, we massively appreciate that. The full class schedule returns from Monday, which I know some of you are going on holiday. I know it's the end of the school year and all this, that, and the other. Don't let your fitness slip. Full classes from Monday, 5:30 in the morning, all the way to 8:30 in the evening. And if you are still here over summer, you can still take advantage of Summer Madness, which is a ridiculous price membership to come in the evenings only. Give the guys at the front desk a shout and they will let you know all about it. Also, if you're interested in competing or doing a fitness competition, the Turf Games, which is a pretty big event, but loads of fun and open to everyone. There's different categories. Takes place in Dubai in November, and we have 4 or 5 teams already registered. We've sent out some communication on that. If you've missed that, don't worry, you still can register. Drop Andy, am@innerfight.com, an email, and he will tell you exactly how to do it. The final bit is endurance. Big weekend last weekend. You might have seen it. We had people racing in Nice. We were over in Roth in Germany. It was absolutely huge. However, the show, and this week we're obviously here in Chamonix as well. However, the show goes on in Dubai. Some people have asked, are the community sessions still running? Yes, community sessions run all the year round. I cannot remember the last time, stupid COVID, but whatever, we skipped a track Tuesday or a coffee run. There's still plenty going on. If you want to get involved in that stuff, give the guys endurance@innerfight.com an email. That's it for this week's show announcements. Let's get into the show. This is episode number 816 of the InnerFight podcast with Ben Kinerman-Daltrey. Enjoy the show. BKD, this one is something that I'm actually quite excited about, mate. Thank you for coming and chatting to me. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been at least 3 years, mate. Yeah, and then you throw me on a podcast.
Let's kick off in the deep end, mate. Pressure.
Yep.
What is it? How does it happen? What are your initial thoughts? I know we've got loads of different examples because we can talk for hours, but what is it?
Pressure is actually something I've played about with a lot in the last year. The bit that always comes back to me is I get her name right, Billie Jean King.
Yeah.
Speaks about pressure being a privilege, right? So whether that's at an endurance event or work, anytime we're under pressure, to me, it's a privilege because it means we care about something.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we start there, mate, and then work backwards.
Would you say the last 3 years of your life, you have had the privilege, if we carry on with privilege, you have had the privilege of being under some of the heaviest pressure that you've been under?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess to give some context to that, I started a recruitment business on the third day of lockdown out here. I remember waking up, couldn't leave the house. The headline was 70% of people were about to lose their jobs in the UAE, and we've just launched a recruitment business. Stupid thing to do. But is it a privilege? Yes, because for the first 15 years of my working life, the only thing I wanted to do was to set up a business.
Really?
Yeah. So like, you're playing about with that the whole time. Would I have picked the third day of lockdown to set up a recruitment business? Probably not.
Yeah.
But was it a privilege and the pressure I've put myself under? Yeah, mate, it's a privilege.
That's interesting, mate. And there's few people that listen to the show. Generally, there's only a few. But of those few, some people either do have their own business or are thinking to start their own business.
Yeah.
You said something there that I want to jump into. For the last 15 years, you've always wanted to start your own business.
Yeah.
Why is that?
My dad always ran his own business of sort, and he'll probably listen to this, but never super successfully, mate. But
I'll send it straight to him.
yeah, like watching his struggles and the ups and the downs, like I like that.
Yeah.
Life is a bit of a roller coaster in itself, so it sort of plays out through work. And ultimately, if you're going to get up and live your life and work every single day, you might as well do something that you enjoy and not be answerable to hundreds of people.
When did you realise that? When did you realise that because there's quite a difference there. A lot of people can work in a job for a number of years and really enjoy it. But I think I've picked up on something there that your enjoyment of answering to others was perhaps very low.
Like I really enjoy what I do. So I've always worked in sales.
Yeah.
It's all I've ever done. And genuinely something I love doing. I think it's the opportunity to create time and freedom and do as you please and all them things that people tell you get with your business, which I think is a bit of a lie. That I wanted, mate.
Early days of lockdown.
Yeah.
You create you had the privilege, as we started, to create one of the potentially highest pressure situations of your life. Would you say? I mean, am I off the mark there?
No, so decision was, as I said, I always wanted to start my own business. Comes back to something called InnerFight, mate. But day 3 of Jordan, it's a long day, 70 kilometers, 72 kilometers. Super difficult day, emotionally, physically. And I remember sitting in a checkpoint, and I'd been playing about with the idea of starting my business, and it was at that moment, it was just going to happen. So, yeah, it's pressured, but it was all right, you know.
And that was in like October
2019.
October 2019.
Yeah. And like that, it's probably the best I've ever felt. I was running a great team at work. Work was going really well.
Yeah.
Had some amazing people around me. Just completed the best event that I've ever entered. Like, Jordan's awesome. For anyone that wants to go and do that, that is a seriously cool event. Make a life-changing decision. And then run through that. We then went and done Dubai Marathon, which was his first proper race, versus trying to complete something. I wanted to race that. Felt the best I've ever felt, mate. And then me and my business partner, Liam, were serving 3-month notice period. So we handed in our notice at the start of Jan, when COVID wasn't a thing. And then Feb comes and there's a few countries being in lockdown. Then March comes and then our founders come to us in our previous business and they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And it's like, "Mate, this COVID thing will be gone in a month or two. Of course we're going to go and do this." So then April 2nd, 2020, get the privilege of setting up our own business, mate.
You've always been into creating pressure and endurance through endurance sports.
Yeah.
I think, and you'll correct me, mate, but that probably started around 10 years ago when you started entering different things. Talk us through how you got into why you put yourself in those situations.
Yeah. So I guess my start of endurance sports, I've always been into sport. I played football and and whatnot at school. I never was a big runner. I'd done 800 at school, but only because no one else wanted to run. We weren't at a high performance school, so if you played football, then you're in the cricket team. I was in the basketball team at 5 foot nothing. So you get thrown into everything. Actually, when I first started running, working in London, working all the hours, drinking all the beer and everything else that comes with it, mate, and my brother sort of pulled me out and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "I'm good, mate. I'm earning good money. I'm in London, and there's like the dream of many people. You get to take clients out for drinks on a daily basis, and it feels really good." And my brother's like, "Mate, I've signed you up to a half marathon, and it's about 4.5 weeks away." I was like, okay. At the time, I think I was about 98, 99 kg. I remember that day, put on your shoes, strap up. I think I got to the end of the road. I was fucked. I was like, mate, this is tough. But yeah, so 4 weeks later, done a half marathon. Didn't really do much for me. So then we signed up to London Marathon. I got a place in that, my brother didn't. So he was like, let's go and do Manchester instead. But that was 2 weeks before. So we did Manchester Marathon, then 2 weeks later did London Marathon. That was my first sort of endurance entry, mate.
When you were entering these races, what was going on in your head? Like, why were you doing it?
I don't really know. Like, there's a lot of like pressure. I guess it comes back to this from. So work in sales, you're monitored daily by what you do, your output. Like everything is monitored. Your calls are recorded. Your dials. Your like everything. I don't know if there's another job in the world where absolutely everything you do, you're accountable to a number. So you're sort of used to being under that pressure, and then you start running, and actually you're ridiculously free when you're running, mate.
Yeah.
And it was a release of pressure. There wasn't like, I don't care, like you do a half marathon or a marathon. That's a pretty cool way of switching off. And I think other people go and do yoga right in the morning or they meditate. If I get up at 5:30 in the morning and see the sunrise whilst running, that for me is meditation. I think so. It released a lot of the pressure from work, mate.
It's nuts what you've just said though, right? Because your background and I'm going to call it an obsession, is numbers, which inadvertently or directly create an insane amount of pressure. For a lot of people, sport is performance, is also numbers. Yep. Even more so due to things like Strava. In endurance sports, numbers become even more prevalent. Yep. And maybe you've got some thoughts on this because you're in an endurance community and you've been around endurance communities for a long time, but we generally see people that are insanely numbers driven in their professional lives then become like that same addiction goes into endurance sports. But you've gone completely the other way. You've found this incredible amount of freedom despite entering races that are you against the clock.
If you put performance goals on, sure, it's you against the clock, but I think a lot of it's just you against you. I think the only race I've raced where it felt like a performance goal was the Dubai Marathon. Outside of that, mate, it was, let's see what we can do. I had no time goal for Jordan. I had no expectations of beating anyone, or like if I completed that, for me was awesome. So yeah, it depends what way you look at it, right? If someone rocks up to you and is like, I want to run a sub-3 marathon, sure, you've got to look at the number. But if someone comes to you and goes, I want to complete a marathon, that's different. They'll probably still get sucked into Strava and everything like that, mate. But
how have you separated it when your whole life has been around numbers?
Yeah, I don't think we definitely don't always do it, right? When you're on training peaks and you're ticking that off and you've got a race, you're 3 months out, you better be hitting those numbers. But I think you strip it all back and remember why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. If I wake up in the morning, I've got a session to hit and I've got to hit certain numbers, sure. But if I lose enjoyment doing that, then I've got pressure at work. I've got pressure running to numbers. That's no longer a fun place to be.
So if you could wrap up why you started, it just seemed like a good idea.
Yeah. Just be a bit less shit at life, mate. Outside of work, really. Like you can be high. Can you be high performing at work and shit outside? Probably not. Not over a long period of time. Right? I was doing well at work. Would I have been able to sustain that for the next 5-10 years? Probably not without something outside of it, mate.
I actually think you can. I think you've come up with something absolutely genius, mate. I think I see a lot of people that are insane at work, but insanely shit outside of work.
Yeah.
And that's why they end up working so much.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go home because they're shit at their home life.
Yeah.
They don't want to train because they're shit at training.
Yeah.
So what they end up doing is working 10
I'm really
hours.
good at this bit.
They're
Just
really
keep
good
doing
at that bit. Yeah. And it's, it's not dissimilar if you look at a sport such as running.
Yeah.
We always talk about strength side of running and how much strength work you're doing. But a lot of runners are quite shit at that. Yeah. So they don't
resonates.
They don't do it. And they're like, you put someone 120 Ks a week of running, they can do it. Mm-hmm. You take that down, you save them 6 hours and just ask them to reinvest 2 of those 6 hours into 3 strength sessions and they can't do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, mate, I actually think it's absolutely that. And I think it's interesting what you said. You wanted to be a little bit better at life outside of the workplace.
Yeah.
And so then it's just what I'm trying to process, as you can probably see, is I've got someone who's so numbers driven and goals driven, and then we put them in a sport which has so many carrots to continue to be numbers driven. Yeah. And also through, we've spoken about Strava quickly there, through that ego driven. Yeah. Because sales is a lot of ego as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's, like you said, mate, it's leaderboards.
Yeah. And constantly.
Yeah. It's brutal. You go, I remember sitting in, when I lived in Australia and I was doing telesales and, you sit with the headset on and it rings for you and you don't want to speak to the person. Yeah. And then every sort of 10 minutes in the sales room. So there was this massive room, mate. We're all in cubicles and stuff and it's noisy as hell. And every 10 minutes when someone lands a lead, they go up to the front and ring the bell, and it's literally like, that fuckwit, he's been up 3 times in the last 15 minutes and I'm just
pressure, mate. You better crack on.
So that comes into endurance, right?
Yeah. I think there's something interesting there, mate, is I also talk the whole time I'm at work. I'm in front of customers or colleagues or clients, whatever I'm talking the whole time. And then you would have remembered me and Jordan, or before Jordan when we're training, a lot of, I don't talk that much when I'm training, right? Or at all. But that was my space, and my meditation was running. So if I came, and I love the community here, mate, but if I came and brought the same amount of energy here as I did to work, I would have been awful at work. So my talking and my energy went into that, and then you come and do endurance sports, and for me that's the relaxation and the zen to it. And I didn't have to be part of all those conversations, but you're still learning from everyone around you, right? There's 2 types of people. Yeah. One person that takes energy from being in a room, and other people that have to go and spend some time alone to gain energy. So if I'm at work and I was managing a team of 30 odd people where they ask you 250 questions a day, if I then came and trained and spent all my energy talking to people there, I would have been awful at work again, mate. So it's trying to get that right.
When did you realise that?
When did I realise, I had to sort of balance between the 2? Yeah. I don't know if it was a conscious thought, mate.
Maybe not.
No, I don't think so. There's only a certain amount of energy you can give.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, really good example, mate. You are super successful in your work. Your work is sales. Sales is talking. Yeah. But you've wrapped it up so well. Everyone knows that you're a super nice guy, but within, for example, take InnerFight Endurance, when we were training as a group for Jordan. Yeah. But you're always the quietest.
Yeah.
But at work, you're always the busiest.
Yeah.
Or always not the loudest, but you're yapping.
Yeah, which is... It's like, and then you take yourself away from that situation and you feel a bit peculiar about it because all these people that you're spending a lot of time training with, right?
Yeah.
Probably think you're basically mute, mate, but I'm talking 8 hours a day and shouting at people all day, not shouting, wrong word, but like, yeah, you're talking all day, every day, and you're negotiating and everything else that comes with sales, mate. And then you're training with these people and they've hardly heard you speak, but yeah, it's unpick that one.
I mean, mate, I agree, and I think what you said is probably not new to a lot of people that listen to the show. I'm on a very similar page. You have a limited amount of energy, and your energy expenditure. I think we're not always super proud of it. In the way that I can sit here the whole day, do podcasts, listen to people, talk to people, help the coaches, my job basically. And I'll get home at night and mate, my tank's empty.
Yeah.
And I've got my amazing wife there who,
deserves some of that energy, right?
It's heartbreaking.
There's only so many that you can,
so
much you can give.
It's tough,
Yeah.
And it's very hard as from what you do to, okay, it's 5 o'clock now. I'll switch that off and I'll switch that on.
Yeah.
Like that energy, I'm absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
But she's been waiting the whole day.
Yeah.
And literally, mate, as I know you know as well, 6 days out of 7, there's an amazing meal on the table and I just don't have anything left.
Yeah.
And it's this crazy situation but you were, and this is what's interesting as well, you were able always to give physical energy to your training, and you've always prioritized that as well.
I needed both. So you need that release physically because I don't have, my job's not physical. I sit at a desk and I speak on the phone and I might sit, the most physical thing I'll do today is travel here and travel home.
Right.
Like work wise.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that physical release, I think you're in trouble. But how do I get all that energy is from doing everything outside of work, the training, the sunrise run. You need to do all of that to then be able to give that insane amount of energy to whatever it was at the time, 30 odd people asking 250 questions. Otherwise,
if I remember one thing from this show, 30 people, 250 questions.
I averaged it out. I like numbers.
When I'm having a bad day, I'll think of that and I'll be like, I've only had 3 people ask me 10 questions so far. So we've got sport creating almost an equilibrium in life.
Yep.
We've got insane pressure in the workplace through a sales-driven job, and we've got a release valve from sport. I like what you said, mate, about the sunrise and re-energizing. How do you really, though, on an ongoing basis, motivate yourself now that you know that this is the release valve?
Yeah.
How do you keep the motivation to keep releasing and not adding more pressure in something that you actually enjoy doing, which is the sales job side?
Yeah.
I'll keep all the questions really simple. Yeah.
Cheers, mate. Glad I've come in here after 3 years. So I don't think you can live in the world with no pressure. You can't live in the world with all the pressure, right? If you think, using an analogy I quite like, of a helium balloon, right? If you don't put enough helium in the balloon, what happens?
It doesn't stay up.
Yeah, if you put too much helium in the balloon, what happens?
Get squeaky voice.
Right? Whatever you did at school. But like, you've got to manage the right amount of pressure. And so many times you get that wrong, mate, right? I got this really wrong last year. Like all my pressure was at work and I didn't, the paradox of this is go easy on yourself, mate. Work's tough, really tough. Don't worry about getting up in the morning. Like sleep a bit more. Don't train. Don't worry about it. Don't eat great food. You don't have to. Just pick something easy. You're under a lot of pressure. But the reality of going easy on yourself, life gets a lot harder, right? Because now you're out of shape. You're eating shit food, and then you've got no energy at all. So So yeah, it's just, I don't like the word balance, but it's finding the right amount of pressure between too much and not enough to.
Why don't you like the word balance?
I've played about with this word loads in the last 6 months, mate. So my biggest challenge with our business in the last 2 years or 3 years since launching was trying to maintain a bit of balance around personal life, work life, training. And the thing I got really wrong was understanding where to go hard on myself and where to go a bit easier on myself. And I think that comes from the rhetoric around balance, right? It's still a job. You work your 9 to 5, but then go home and then, spend time with your loved ones and then train at the weekends. And this is what everyone wants you to do is, perfect little sections of your life where, you equal time with everyone and your family and your friends and everything else that comes with it. But if you're getting home and you've got a million things on your mind about work and you could do, let's work an extra hour and wrap up a few things. So then when you're with your loved ones, you can feel like disconnected and your mind's a bit freer and you've given yourself the time to go and train. I don't like the rhetoric around balance, mate. I don't think it works. I think it adds too much pressure to people to live this idyllic 9 to 5 life where, you go home and you got your lovely couple of kids and, there's just an expectation that you're perfect and there's no way that you can be great at everything. I mean, if you look at like training peaks, I know you know well, but if you relate that to triathlon, you've got swimming, running, cycling, strength work, relaxing. If you try to do all of those 5 things equally the whole time, you get nowhere. So you've got some weeks where you're working harder at your running and your riding. Then you've got deload weeks where you haven't got as much going on. So I see life a little bit like training peaks, mate. And it's peaks and troughs. Sometimes you go harder in some areas of your life and sometimes you go softer. And
But isn't that balance then?
No, not really. Balance would be doing, not in my opinion, not in the way I see it. Balance would be doing everything equally a lot of the time. If someone saw you work a 60, 70 hour week, oh mate, you need to balance that back out. Well, maybe next week I'll work 20 hours. There's no balance in that. It's the opposite. You're either working really hard or you're taking a bit of time off. Trying to work the right amount of time each week to please a rhetoric around balance is bullshit.
I agree on a really short time frame. But see, so I've also, I think, mate, and this is why it's such an interesting conversation, all these things, because of, what you've been through, what we've all been through over the last 3 years. I think like you said, it's either you start a business or you move a business during the pandemic, both, and everyone's had their challenges.
Of course, mate.
You sort of like, you look back at those times and you're like, well, that period, did I have balance? Did I have what we'd traditionally say is a work-life balance?
Yeah.
Well, if you interpret a work-life balance as a 9 to 5 and then X amount of time with mates, and then absolutely we didn't.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at it on an annual basis, or if you look at it even over the 3 years that we're talking about, you've still done great physical things. You've kept in shape. Started to, but this is the thing. So it's more interpretation of the timeline. This is also where I think life is very similar to training peaks, and you sort of alluded to it there. It's like right now we're in a base building phase. Okay, what does a base building phase look like in my job? On the flip side of what I said earlier about spending all my energy, there'll be certain days where I'll be at home by 3. And I've got loads of energy for Holly. And the way that I'll look at it is, okay, a week is quite narrow. I try and have a little bit of time off certain parts of the week, but I think that's quite a narrow. A month is not bad, but if you look at it over periods of 3 months, 6 months, and a year, and which we're quite good at doing, but poor at executing on annual goals. It's like, okay, this year I'm going to spend X amount of time working. I'm going to get in my ultra, my CrossFit competition, whatever it is. Then we've actually defined what balance is, and we've created it over over a longer period. But I agree, mate. I think the concept of balance, because you can always, if you were into balance, then every Friday night, if a mate called you for a beer, you'd have to go.
Yeah. So that's what you do, right? You go for a beer on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. But you, I'm sure you've still nurtured relationships, friendships over the last 2 or 3 years, right?
Yep.
So we sit in a, it's an interesting one.
I guess we're really poor at looking at things over a longer period of time, right?
Why do you think that is?
The easy answer is around like instant gratification and being used to that. Yeah, I'll go with the easy answer, mate.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I agree.
We're used to it. But that's like, endurance events is, the thing I love most about Ironmans and ultras, ultra events, is you can't blag them, right? There's no one turning up on the start line of an Ironman after training for a week and getting it done. There's no one turning up to the start line of Jordan and getting that done over 5 days, right? And the hardest looking bloke with the biggest mouth. By day 2 or day 3, you know he's blagging it, and I love that.
Yeah,
I love that you can't blag these big events, mate. Yeah.
Lots of people try though.
Yeah, but that's fun, right? It's good fun to stand on the start line, the geezer with the loudest mouth, and you all go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see where you are in 3 days, mate. Let's see how this rolls out.
Do you take that mindset into your working environment?
Yeah. Definitely, mate. Definitely.
Sales guy giving himself high fives on the 3rd of the month because he's landed one deal.
Well done, mate. Well done. See you at the end of the month. Yeah, definitely, mate.
Talk us through some of let's go back to the business side, mate. We've jumped around, but I like it. I'm interested to hear about some of the challenges that you've faced in your business over the last sort of 3 years, maybe how you've overcome them. I don't know if you've got some examples or some stuff you want to share. I think it's amazing, mate. I always think it's incredible. People, it's very easy and everyone wants to quit the corporate grind, but few do it. Most people just sit there talking about it for a long time, and you've done it, and there's a pretty good chance you'll continue to be successful if you're successful after 3 years. So talk us through how it's been, mate, some of the challenges and how you've got over them and how you feel about stuff.
Yeah, like the first big challenge that jumps out of us when you start a business, you sort of forecast, right? Realistically, we're not going to make much money for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and not being the wealthiest of people. We both had enough money aside to survive for 3 or 4 months without taking a salary. And then with COVID hitting, recruitment business, we very quickly realised that 3 to 4 months becomes 6, 7, 8 months, or however long COVID's going to happen, right? So already downsized where I was living. So I moved into a tiny little studio box apartment with terrible aircon. So there wasn't too much more that we could take away in terms of like personal finance. So you had to try and figure out how do we make money quicker? Yeah. Which is a really horrible position to be in as a business. So set up a recruitment business, ended up doing loads of sort of coaching and training, which is something we loved, but there were sort of quick wins in that. So challenging, but I hate the word pivot as well, mate, because everyone pivoted during COVID. But we just utilised what we knew around coaching and training to generate some revenue, so we could survive the first sort of 6 or 7 months before the world started to come back. And then there's a lot of pressure around like growth of the business and the people and the amount of people you've got in your business. So we went through a phase probably 18 months to 2 years ago where we had a bigger team. But it was at the wrong point for us, and reflecting back, hindsight's lovely, isn't it? But we grew almost too quickly and in the wrong areas. So that was a big learning. And we sort of shrunk the team again with the vision of moving to the UK, and that's a story in itself. Before settling back out here, mate, and now like this year, whatever's happening in Dubai in comparison to the rest of the world, it feels really good out here at the moment, mate. Yeah. I feel when you run a recruitment business, you've probably got a good feel for the market, because the first thing businesses do when things are going well is they hire people. And this first 5-6 months of this year for Dubai feels really good, mate. So we're benefiting from that now.
Break from the business story and give us a little bit. We've got people in Dubai and we've got people around the world. I'm really always interested to see from industry.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great comment you said. Give us your sort of rundown on where Dubai is actually at, why it's at, where it's at now.
So I guess my feel, so our business works predominantly with tech businesses. These tech businesses tend to have a lot of funding and VC investment.
Yeah.
So the first thing that happens during a crisis is VC investment dries up. Businesses struggle because they're not necessarily profitable. So as a business, we actually had an interest in Germany as well as the UAE. Back end of last year, as soon as people started talking about recession, Europe went really quiet. America went really quiet. And then Dubai just picks up and picks up and picks up. And now my inbox on LinkedIn gives me a fairly good indication of where people want to be in the world. And you think like 6-7 years ago, you tell people you're going to move to the Middle East. They're like, why are you doing that? Like, can you even drink there? Like, what is the point? Like, can women drive cars? And it's like, mate, just leave me alone. So you move here, and then now I look at my inbox on LinkedIn. Every man and his dog is in my inbox. Like, how do I get here? What do I need to do?
Really?
What does that look like? And I've really senior, successful people in the UK in my inbox on LinkedIn trying to figure out, how do I get here? And even if that means them taking a step back just to move out here, mate. So whatever they're doing is working. But I love it. It's good for business, mate.
If you want to come and work in Dubai, jump onto Ben's LinkedIn.
Stay out my inbox, mate. It's a killer.
Drop into his inbox and have a chat with him. I might even put his LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Let's have a look. So continue, mate. That's a super interesting insight, isn't it? And like you said, some people are almost willing to go backwards to move here, to go forwards,
Well,
which is nuts.
Again, think like 5-10 years ago, the packages people expected to move to the Middle East. You know, you wanted housing and family allowance and 100%. Visas and big packages, and they're just not there now. Like, people are willing to accept. They wouldn't have been willing to accept what they earned in the UK to move here. And I use UK because that's what I know, right? And then they'd want more money to move here. A couple of years ago, they would accept the same money. And now they would accept less money than what they were earning in the UK just to get out and experience what we get to experience here, mate.
It might not be Dubai. It could be what the UK has to offer at the moment.
I'm back there on Sunday, so I'll say nothing bad.
You give us an update, mate, and let us know what's going on.
Back here by Monday.
What do you think? Let's go for a little bit of the cheesy one, mate. What is probably the biggest learning you've had in the last 3 years setting up and running your business?
Feels like an easy answer because it's on the t-shirt, mate. But it's just around endurance, right? This isn't easy. But then it's not easy working for someone else as well, and there's going to be ups and downs. And I think in sales and endurance events is not to get too excited when it's going well, because it's going to turn and go bad, and not to get too sad when it's going bad, because you know it's going to turn up and get better. So it's remaining level-headed through your successes and your failures throughout the whole time. And you know, if we pictured what we pictured 3 years ago where we are now, we'd be delighted. Would we have still done it if we knew what we knew would happen over the last 3 years? Probably not, mate. But if you reflect back to where we are now, I would have been delighted.
Would you?
Yeah. It might have looked different. The business might have looked different. There might have been more people. There might have been less people. We might have been in a different location. We don't really know. Because hindsight's wonderful, but I'd certainly take where I am now. I get to wake up. I love the people that I work with. We're very particular with the businesses we work with. Like, we just, I only want to work with good people. There's no point running your own business and then working with
cockheads.
Yeah, cockheads, mate. So I get to work with great people. I love what I do, and we're doing all right. So
one thing that just jumped to mind when you were saying that, mate, I remember it was the penultimate stage of the Giro this year when Geraint Thomas lost by 1 second and lost the race, ended up second. And those that know cycling know Geraint Thomas. He's been in the peloton for a number of years. Unfortunately, he's from Wales, but sometimes it's like that. We'll take him as Great Britain. And he said, you know, if you'd have told me 3 weeks ago that I would have been on the second step, I think he said something like, I'd have bitten your fucking arm off for it. Yeah. You know, and it's similar to what you say. If you sort of look where you were sat 3-4 years ago and where you're sat now, because it's quite easy, isn't it? Especially, and it all roots back to this dopamine, the molecule of more, the sales industry. We can sell more, Dubai can be bigger, we can get more VC money, the whole thing. Yeah. But you've just put it in such a beautiful way that, we probably could be further along. Yeah. It could be a whole load different if we didn't do this and we didn't do that. But far out.
We almost might be out of business, mate. So, you know.
But if you think back to your 2019 moment in Jordan or your 2020 start and visualize what you visualized then for where you'd be in 2023, you're over the moon.
Yeah, take it. Absolutely, mate.
It's very inspiring. Let's get another low-lying fruit and another cheesy one, mate. What are the regrets?
Just keep picking words I hate, mate. I mean, trying to scale too big was probably an ego thing. Trying to hire people quicker than what we should have done was probably an ego thing. Yeah. And the other side of that is we had to let one or two people go when, you know, we probably shouldn't have hired them in the first place. So ego maybe got in the way because, you know, so you think of a spring for that year in COVID, it was like a compressed spring. And as soon as business turned good, we started growing probably too quickly. So that's a regret, I guess, but a good lesson that we've learned. And like this year, we're probably hire one or two more people, but we probably could hire more, but we're lessons learned from before. We're trying to take forward, mate, because times are good now doesn't mean, you know, it's always gonna fly. So that's probably my biggest regret. Yeah.
More people is sometimes most excellent, but often not so excellent. Let's put it that way.
If I think where we are now, if I had to do this for the next 10 years, with the amount of people we've got in the business and doing what we do, working with people, like, it's cool, man. Like, this is all right. Yeah. I get to wake up and train and work with great people. This is all right, you know. Of course, I'd like to grow a bigger business, but in the right way. Would it be
what you said, though, mate? Would it be ego, or would it be what you really want?
We've got a goal where we want to be to create a really nice either lifestyle business or so we get to an amount of people billing an amount of money, again, numbers. And at that point, we'll probably decide whether, you know, this is just a really cool lifestyle business and I get to go off and do some cool shit in the desert, or whether that's running around the Atlantic or in the Antarctic even, or in the Atlantic. Could do that. Or we get to that point and go, right, how do we sell this business? What does that look like 4 or 5 years? So that, like, we get to this first point and then decide what to do. So we've got a goal around that, I guess.
How do you make it the right goal for you rather than get sucked into the ego side of things? And I say that for 2 reasons, mate. I think you've mentioned ego once or twice. We mentioned it when we were talking about sales. You mentioned it there with the regret of growing the business. And the third reason why I sort of bring it in is because I feel sometimes Dubai can be a little bit about ego. It can be, you know, it's someone's somehow always seems to be doing better or a little bit better. Whether it's they're turning up in a flash car that they can't afford the loan for, but it can be quite ego driven here. So how do you navigate that?
It sort of comes here when you first messaged me a couple of weeks ago. It was off the back of Into the Darkness, right? And a big check of my ego out there. So 50 kilometers cycle was fine. Started running, and then physically I felt all right, mate. And I potentially could have continued, but I was like, why do I need to do this? And like, if I stop now, does anyone care? No. If I continue, does anyone care? Also no. But like, do I care? I was like, I want to get this completed. I've not failed at anything like this, so I'll continue. And I think the only reason I would have continued is because of my ego, and I didn't want you in my inbox going, "What happened, mate?"
But I came into your inbox.
Yeah, still asked the same question. I should have continued. Yeah,
it's tricky, isn't it? And I think and that leads on to. I've only got a few more questions, but it leads on to another question that I've got for you. You've got a business partner and you've got a team, but you're on your own a little bit now.
Yeah.
And you've told us you use running to release the pressure. How else do you get on your own and reflect and figure out what makes Ben happy?
Boom, question. Yeah. Still, it's so much of that happens whilst running, mate. Like so much of that still happens. The space and the thought process is still very much happens when I'm running. Still run a lot on my own. I think now if I started integrating a lot more into the endurance community, you'd probably see a different side to me, because I spend a lot more of my work life without those 250 questions. So I'd probably come into the gym and events and talk a lot more because I haven't used all that energy. Without endurance or running or cycling, not swimming, hate swimming, but without those things like that for me is my peace. Yeah,
it's cool. It's peace, and it's also another word that I want to just spin off quickly is, which I feel that I think you've bought this not through money but through your effort, which is freedom. Do you feel a greater sense of freedom now than ever before?
Yeah, man. Like, if you have to remember where you were to where you've got to, right? If you said 5-10 years ago to almost anyone, not specifically me, that you had the freedom to work online and like people are like, wow, that's a really cool goal, eh?
Yeah.
COVID sort of accelerated that for many people. But I wake up, I live in a nice place and I get to run along that's really cool. So it's like, yeah, like there's so much freedom to what you do, but you still answer, like, I've got a business partner, we've got to execute. So there's, I've still got a boss, but it's a boss that I picked and he picked me, right? And he's just got back from doing Edinburgh Marathon. So that's a good person to be around.
Yeah.
Like the freedom of running your own business is awesome. But also, pressure and challenge and everything else that comes with it. You have to earn that freedom.
So would you say, you've led me so perfectly into this one, mate. Would you say that pressure is something different now than it used to be? And if so, what is it now?
Yeah. Yes, it's changed. And this was a bit about Into the Darkness, mate, when you started messaging me and I was like, what happened? Like, my life is different now. When I was in Jordan or doing Ironmans in the past, I had the clarity of thought that it was only really me. And like, I had that key in the box. I knew where I could take myself, and I didn't feel like I had any responsibility to anyone else. So it's easy to make a decision in Jordan that, this is going to suck and you're going to suffer. And if something really bad happens, it's okay because it's only me. Like, the reality it isn't. I've got an amazing family and friends and everyone around me, but there was a real clarity of thought there. Where now got fiance and we've a house and business partner, and like, so this is a different key that I need to. So you look at someone like Rob, amazing family, wife, kids, and still goes and does these amazing things in the mountains or Tanzania. So it's like, this is a new key that I need to figure out how to pull out my box, mate, because I don't have that one yet.
But that's exciting.
Yeah. But like, it's challenging because you start into the darkness, and my partner messaged me. She's like, be safe, be sensible. But it's like, none of this is safe or sensible. It's stupid. Right? But like, safe because I trust everyone in a fight that if you're in trouble, they'll pick you up. Right? Like, completely but she don't know that. She don't know you or the team. So it's a new key that I need to unpick. And so you go through different stages of your life, and your responsibilities change, and then your mindset has to change. Like I went into that event thinking I could just do what I always do, is like just suffer and struggle, and it's going to be all right. And like the worst possible outcome to that, I wasn't comfortable with. So you pull it, but then like try not to see it as a bad or a good thing. It's just like something else I've got to explore and understand and find a new key, and that's what I'm excited about, mate. That's why I put it back in the diary, and we're going to give it another shot.
And that's really why I wanted to get you on, mate, because the way that you look at both the positives and also the negatives, or the shit that doesn't go too well, as opportunity is it's inspiring, mate. It really is. You know, you said it, like, don't get too excited when it's going really well, and don't get too sad when it's not going really well.
Just figure it out, right?
Just figure it out. But, you know, and that probably all links back to your insane ability to take the privilege of pressure, as you said at the start of the show, and
to endure.
Yeah. Last question. Where's it all going?
If I lived every day like I get to live every day now, it'd be cool.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I think you have to remember where you were, where you are now, and let's strive for stuff. And like, I've got really high ambitions with the business and my personal life and what we want to achieve. But if you start from the point as like, if I just live today, every day, and then we're good, mate, we're good. Where's it all going? I'd imagine we'll grow a slightly bigger business. But as long as I get to wake up with the freedom around people that I love, doing things that I love to do, and get to go and do some cool shit, whether that's in the desert or the Antarctic, or I've got this insane desire to one day row the Atlantic. And that's another thing you've got to unpick. Right now I've got people that really care about me, but I want to go and row the Atlantic. So how do I figure that out? And I think that's where it's going, mate. It's trying to figure out how we keep doing this cool shit, but without, but managing that pressure around it.
Incredible.
Cool.
That's awesome. We'll have to have you back, mate. I think we've just started scratching the surface. And
probably the most you've ever heard me speak.
Yes and no. I've heard you talk. The problem is, mate, and I'll be honest, and you know this more than anyone, people that don't say much, when they say something, you want to be listening.
Yeah.
And all the time that you've spoken, I've always tried to listen and tried to figure it out. So yes, this is probably more in one session than we've ever chatted before, despite having worked together on things. But mate, it's incredible, and you know, hats off. I think it's from something that was born almost in adversity in Jordan, or that was the moment of clarity. I know how hard that day was for you. I saw you going into it.
Everyone else was asleep when I finished, mate. Apart from you, to be fair. There's a lovely analogy you use around you, like you never felt closer to death, but never felt more alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Jordan, mate.
That was it.
Yeah.
And I could see it, and you know, and I think that's why life goes the way it goes. We haven't been in super close contact since the start of 2020, and you know, and that's what's beautiful, that we can come back and have a conversation that I'm absolutely confident will help the two people that listen to the show. You know, and that's,
cheers, mum and dad.
Yeah, literally. Like, my mum and dad stopped listening after 100 shows. They're like, I've heard all of your shit. But Ben, thank you so much, mate.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.
And this won't be the last time, I'm sure.
Legend. Cheers,
Appreciate
man.
it.